It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. Yes, sirree, Bob. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. And that was all the personality I had. This week, starring special guest star Mr. Josh Doyle. Yay! Welcome, Josh. Hello, everybody. Let me get the chat window open there. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, hope you guys all had a great weekend and that all you moms had a great Mother's Day. And so I had a funny experience regarding today's show. This all started probably 3 weeks ago when Sarah Schumacher said to me, "Do you know who Taxi member Josh Doyle is?" And I said, "I know I've seen his name and I'm sure I've heard his music because I do hear stuff that gets forwarded." Yeah. And she goes, "Why don't we have him on the show?" Because Sarah sees all the stuff that gets forwarded. She's been in charge of putting together the files that go out. So she knows who all the forwarded people are. And I said, sure. She's kind of reach out to him. I said, sure. And so we've had some emails that have gone back and forth. And earlier today, I started going through our emails and looking at my notes, and I said, I should check out the guy's Wikipedia page. So I did, and I see that he's from the UK and that he was signed to this management company and this record deal, and I'm going, oh, well, that explains some of his thinking, and in our back and forth. And then about, 45 minutes ago, I was out by the printer and I hear somebody walk through the front door in the lobby that said, "Hi, my name is Josh and I'm here for Taxi TV." And I went, "There's no British accent there." And I walked out and I said, "I was expecting a British accent." And he goes, "No, other Josh Doyle." So I've got like 5 or 6 pages of notes that are now completely worthless for the other Josh Doyle. Where did they go? Anyway, down here. So, but I've been speaking with the actual Josh Doyle.
The real Josh Doyle.
Yes, the real Josh Doyle, who is a Taxi member, and I might add, a fellow Midwesterner. He's from Indiana, Orlando to Indiana.
That's right.
Here.
That's right.
And as I'm prone to say, I really like Midwesterners, and he confirmed that.
That's right.
Straight up normal people. Even though you've lived in LA for how many years now?
I guess it's 2005, so 9 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And still very normal.
I try. It takes some practice.
So, Josh does get forwarded a lot, and one of the things that interested, I think, Sarah and then myself about him or interested me if you speak really good English, is that he tracks his submissions and tracks his forwards and has a chart thereof, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, I want them to get to know you like I've gotten to know you over the last half hour. So what's your life story, Josh? Tell them, when you first fell in love with music, when you moved out here, why you moved out here, all that stuff.
All right, so let me see here. So my dad had a music store when I was maybe before I was born, up until when I was 5 years old in Florida.
Okay.
And it caught fire, burned down.
Not good.
Not good. And I think he was kind of just heartbroken with that, so he didn't want to build it all back up. So we moved out of Florida, moved around Midwest a bunch. He never really did music.
Who moves from Florida, Orlando specifically, to Indiana?
Well, I was trying to make this story short, but we were actually on our way to Alaska.
Wow.
Because he heard that with all the fishing and oil, and I think this is right, that you can make really good money as a musician, because he's a singer, guitar player, and like playing the
clubs
whole circuit.
For the guys who are working on the pipeline.
Yeah.
There you go.
Apparently there's some good money. So he bought a school bus and tore out all the seats and turned it into an RV, and that's what we were driving to Alaska. And
awesome.
It broke down in Michigan.
It's the Partridge Family.
It totally was. It totally was. And it broke down in Michigan, and he actually grew up in Michigan, so he had friends there and never ended up leaving. And
wow.
Yeah, so my life could have taken a different path if I guess if the transmission had worked.
And going, from a warm weather climate, that explains that he grew up in Michigan, because, who would be crazy enough to want to go live in cold weather after living in warm weather? But
yeah.
He already had it in his blood. So at some point you ended up in Indiana, and what made you leave Indiana and move out here to LA?
All right, so my dad, when I was a freshman in high school, he decided to open up another music store, and he opened it up in the living room of our house. We lived in a two-story house, and he turned the whole downstairs into a music store, and that was my first experience with music. I would come home after school, and the store would be open for a few hours, and then it would close, and I could spend my entire evening in a closed music store just experimenting with all these different musical instruments. Um, yeah, there was a drum set. I was just like, it was a whole new world, and
Kid in a candy store.
yeah, so that was my introduction to playing music, and I took drum lessons with the local drum teacher, and yeah, so it was after that, after playing in high school bands and stuff. I actually went to school for 2 years for web design. I thought, I don't know what I thought. That was kind of my plan B, or I thought it might. I don't know what I was thinking, but halfway through that, I came to my senses of like, I could do web design, when I'm 80 years old if I want, but there's
Right.
only a certain window to be a working musician, because this space isn't going to stay this pretty forever.
And you're married. Do you have any kids?
No, not yet.
And so you moved out here in 2009. And how does your wife feel about you being a working musician? Because I
Oh,
know that's tough for a lot of our members.
Yeah, she's been supportive from the very beginning. She, yeah, I don't think it would have been. I mean, I know other musicians do it. They come out here by themselves and they figure it out. But she made a lot of sacrifices. We actually bought a house in Indiana, and we moved out here. She took a leave of absence from her job. We moved out here for 3 months just to see what I could do, and we ended up staying. And
Right after you got the star on the Walk of Fame.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hadn't really achieved anything yet, but she was totally down to stay. I think she saw that it was important to me to. I think she saw like the difference in my happiness, actually being here around other musicians, the opportunities that were out here. So we moved into an apartment, and we sold our house in Indiana, and I know that was really hard for her. So yeah,
Wow.
that was to take a step backwards, to go from living in a 3-bedroom house to an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment in LA. Yeah, I owe her a lot for the opportunity.
Sounds like a great wife.
Oh, she's
what's
fantastic.
Her name?
Oh, her name is Tiffany Doyle. I think she might be watching.
Hey, Tiffany, if you're watching, you are a good wife.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
A lot of spouses, whether it's a husband or a wife, don't really understand the passion of a musician, and
Yeah.
think it's folly. And
Yeah.
so you got a good one. She's a keeper.
Yeah, and she's the reason why I work so hard, because I wanna be able to pay that back.
Yep,
Yeah.
I get it. Good Midwestern values.
I like to think so. Yeah.
So one of the things, I'm going to play you some of Josh's music in a little bit, but one of the things in our back and forth in the emails was he's been forwarded. I was in shock, frankly. He's got a chart, and Josh joined in 2009 and made 18 submissions and had 18 returns. It was his rookie year. Then the next year, in 2010, he was building his studio and only made 2 submissions. Then the next year, in 2011, he made 232 submissions. That got my attention because that's huge. That's 19.3 submissions a month, which is just like extraordinarily high in my opinion.
I didn't even know.
I would say the average, and it's been a while since I've looked at the numbers, but I would say across all members, the average is probably 4 submissions a month. I think before we started doing online submissions, people had to mail them in.
Yeah.
It was a couple of submissions a month. And then the average doubled to 4 submissions a month when we went online. But so of those 232 submissions, 45 were forwards, which was a 24% forward success rate. He's got a column here called success rate, meaning they got forwarded. Then the next year he submitted 129 submissions and got forwarded 34 times. So you went to 38%. The following year, 191 submissions and 56 forwards, and went to 41% for his forward success rate. And then, so far this year in 2014, he's made 48 submissions, and his success ratio or rate is 44%. What have you done that has increased it steadily, almost methodically, over these last 3 years or 4 years?
I would say that that first year where I submitted, the 200 and something, the year before I was building my studio and just writing just all the time. I was co-writing. I had a partner that was actually that was our focus for that entire year. We set, on January 1st, we are going to write as much as we can for the next year and just see what we can do.
And did you sit down and do it every day, like 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night or something? Did you have a schedule or anything?
I mean, we're both working musicians, so I think we got together at least twice a week for, the 52 weeks of the year. Sometimes a little bit more, but that was our schedule. So anyway, from that year, we just submitting all those things, getting the feedback, getting the critiques. We kind of figured out what our strengths were, what was getting forwarded, what wasn't. It was a big learning year. It was yeah.
What did you learn? What were your strengths? What kind of, first of all, the stuff of yours that I'm familiar with is all singer-songwriter stuff. Mm-hmm. But I asked Josh when he got here, do you do instrumentals? He said, oh yeah. So had you ever done instrumentals for film and TV? Had you only been doing singer-songwriter? What kind of things did you figure out in that learning year?
I think I feel like it's been said so many times, but I mean, just on these shows, just, the writing the universal lyrics, things that I think Ralph Murphy has said on here when he analyzes songs, where like, if your vocal comes in the first 7 seconds of a song, it tends to catch people's ear, even if it's just oohs or ahs, not that the verse has to start there. I found that tended to help things a little bit. So like, songs that we play definitely within the first 10 seconds, I'll have some kind of vocalization happening. I'm trying to think what else, and I was trying to, during a lot of that time I was focusing on I thought the country, writing for country would be a good thing for me. My parents, always had country music playing, so I was like, I've got
that genre.
Yeah, I know that genre. But man, that was a tough one. I got some forwards in the film and TV, film and TV looking for country music, but man, that bar is high
for Nashville, for records.
For Nashville to go after the artist thing. So one of the things I learned was that I'm much stronger writing for film and TV than I am going after label artist #1 hit type thing, just because it's just it's always evolving.
Yeah,
I don't know, I just
it is a high bar.
It's a really high bar.
The payoff can be huge.
Yeah.
For people that have talent in both areas, I encourage them to keep pitching at those high bar listings, because even pro writers who've had hits before find that it's years again before they have another hit.
Yeah.
And maybe a year or two until they get another cut. Maybe 5 years till they get another cut. But when they pay off really big. So if you can blend it with the film and TV thing, if you're so inclined.
But I think the thing that made me feel like there was a little bit of a fork in the road is, and I think maybe you had a Taxi TV topic about this not too long ago, about like the fact that why is your radio hit not great for film and TV placements, and vice versa. Just because you've got a great film and TV song, it may not be a radio hit.
Right.
And so I felt that because I was having more success in the licensing sync areas, that I kind of it was all these past few years about improving my success rates, all been about finding what I'm good at. You know, what of my natural songwriting ability, which I've been doing since I was 15. What am I naturally good at? Like what? Yeah.
What do you enjoy? What are you naturally good at? And is that the thing that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, yeah, it is. Like a lot of my songs are female singer songwriters, and that just I don't know why, but uh, I've always just enjoyed co-writing with female songwriters, and that as a drummer, I've always tended to work with female singer songwriters, just supporting them and stuff like that. So,
Do you play real drums on most of your stuff because you are a drummer, or do you program drums? How do you do it?
yeah, yeah. When I originally built my studio, I wasn't really aiming for this. I had just been living in an apartment for so long that I was like, man, I just want a room where I can just play real drums and just and practice and maybe have rehearsals and stuff like that. But man, it's just once my fellow musicians and artists that I work for found out that I had a studio,
Yeah.
it's I mean not to brag, but I'm producing an artist right now. I'm finishing scoring a movie. I just finished a French pop album, like all simultaneously, like in these 3 months. It's just been like zero sleep, and I all I wanted to do was just play drums in a studio, just maybe record some drum tracks. But to answer your question, yeah, it's a lot of live drums unless the song doesn't call for it, unless it needs
like an electro.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing,
yeah.
So I gotta ask you, what are your favorite drum mics?
I tend to go like ultra, really traditional. Like I've got what do I have? I've got, the 57 on the snare. I've got an RE20 on the floor tom. Sometimes I use that on the kick. My dad actually, because he owned a music store, and he would send me these old mics that I don't really know where they came from, but it's like I don't know, it's like a Shure microphone, but before it was the 57.
Yeah.
And it's
a 456. It's like a hammerhead version of a.
No, I know that one.
Oh,
no,
okay.
This one I should have taken a picture of it, but it's weird. It looks like it's from the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, then there's another one that's like this EV655C. That's a really long pencil mic, and apparently, like, there's pictures of Frank Sinatra using it as his live mic.
Right.
And that thing sounds amazing. It's got a really cool tone to it. So anyway, I just kind of stumbled into these odd microphones, but yeah, nothing too crazy as far as like drum mics go.
Not doing a lot of MS patterns or XYs.
No,
or things like.
The one thing I will say is that with live mic drumming, I had read an interview with Dave Grohl, and he said that he just prefers his drums in mono, just not panned.
Right.
He just feels that it makes more of an impact. And I don't know. I've been doing a lot of that, just with my drums just straight down the center, and not really panning them. Just making it nice and simple.
I got to say, when I go back and listen to stuff I did in the 70s, where I would have the kick and snare down the middle, and the hi-hat probably at like 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But I almost always pan the high tom full left, the mid tom dead center, and the floor tom far right. And when somebody does a turn that involves all three of the toms, it is distracting.
Oh, yeah?
Boop, boop, boop. You're like bouncing all over. So now it's a little embarrassing when I go back and listen to that stuff. So I understand the mono drum thing.
Yeah, I think the other thing for me that when I did try and experiment with panning drums is, being a drummer, I tend to listen from the drummer's seat, and it just got a little bit weird of I don't know, it just got weird, like trying to think of the band from the audience perspective, but listening to the drums from the drummer perspective. I felt like there was two versions of me. I don't know.
I always pan things from the drummer's perspective, but
Yeah?
that's from years of setting up mics and tuning drums and listening to
Ah.
them out in the room. I don't think I ever did a record where I had the drums panned from the audience perspective, ever.
Interesting, because when I do mix a song, when I sit down and I'm ready to mix it, I'm always thinking from the audience perspective. I'm like, I envision the stage, and I'm like, okay, the electric guitar is over here, and the keyboard player is over here, and that's just I kind of visually mix that way. But with drums, it's just straight down the middle.
And do you
most of
play
the time.
keyboards and guitar as well?
Yeah, I can. I mean, I went to the LA Music Academy for drums and studied there. So part of the program is that you learn piano, and my dad's a guitar player, so I've always had kind of guitar in the house. So I tend to write more on guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can noodle a little bit on piano. Yeah.
Waddy JP says he always pans from the drummer's perspective. You guys are talking about golf?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got a 10 handicap.
And they're talking ping. I mean, that's the oddest discussion I've seen in the chat room yet. Okay, let's listen to a couple of things so they can hear the music that we're going to talk about. So the first thing I'm going to play is a song called "Simple Love," and you wrote this one 100%.
Yes.
By yourself. So anything you want to tell us about it to set it up? Is it a film and TV kind of thing? Is it an artist thing?
It was written. A lot of these songs were written for Taxi Listing, so I'll say that. This one, I believe this one was written for a listing they were looking for something similar to an Amazon Kindle commercial.
Right, I remember the one with the stop motion,
Exactly,
the
yeah.
pretty blonde girl and the guy,
Yeah.
up against the background with stuff moving. Yeah,
Yeah, and so I think that the artist, I looked him up, and the name of the artist was Little and Ashley, or Ashley and Little.
Yeah, she was actually the girl in the cute blonde girl in the commercial.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was the girl.
Yeah. So I think that was the inspiration for this song, and I just wrote the lyrics just trying to be really, the hook is I found a simple love. I just thought that would be perfect for a product.
Okay,
Yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
let's have a listen.
Every time you leave
Yeah. The fake audience and the real audience
Nice.
loved it.
I can feel the love.
Yes. So, on a piece like that, how long did it take you to write it? How long did it take you to record it? And who was the vocalist?
It probably took me. I'm kind of a tweaker, so
Okay.
it probably
Really? You don't look like you have a drug problem.
I mean, I'm getting better. I'm getting better now. I'm in recovery, but that one I probably worked on it over 2 or 3 days. Just kind of just adding things, getting some perspective, sleeping on it, coming back. But I could probably knock that out in a few hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's pretty productive.
yeah. The singer. This is something that I've always been really particular about. I feel that picking the right singer for the song is so essential. I feel that I don't know, like what's that guy's name? He did Skinny Love, Bon Iver.
Yeah.
The recording of that is like so lo-fi and the guitar is out of tune, but there's something about his voice and it just really works. I mean, like overall, if it was an instrumental, you'd be like, "What is this?" It's
Right. It sounds like a really bad somebody who just got Pro Tools and had never used it before, or a Mac laptop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was a great song, and the vocal was you could just feel the emotion pouring out on that song, and so it's that kind of thing that just made me think, man, not that a great vocalist can save a bad song, but it can definitely separate you from the pack if you've got a really really decent song, really good song, and you've got a great vocalist on it, it's gonna really it's gonna sell the song.
And an appropriate vocalist, and she's
Yeah.
got exactly the right texture for this. She's got
Exactly.
that wispy, she's young, she's hip, it's wispy and sweet and makes you want to know her.
Yeah, and there's been vocalists. It's weird. There's been people that I've co-written with, and we've written 3 or 4 songs, and I'll have the co-writer sing on 2 of them, and I'll bring in somebody else to sing on the other 2, even though they could sing it. I just feel like these other 2 could really benefit from just a different attitude, something that they just can't do as well. And some singers get really kind of they take it personal if they're not chosen to sing on their own song.
Who knows better than I?
Right. But I just think that I don't know, it just I don't know, I just feel like there's just certain things the human voice can do really well just innately, and other things that if you want to be able to do it, you have to work really hard to be able to just kind of, I guess, like with accents, like if you wanted to be really good at speaking a British accent and like really sell it, you've got to work on it.
And have some of the natural tonality that would be appropriate for that type of British accent.
Yeah.
Too, because, you've got David Niven and then you've got, Paul McCartney.
Exactly.
And they're both British. One of the things that we talked about in our emails going back and forth is that you've had some deals with libraries through Taxi, and you choose to only do non-exclusive deals. Pretty rare that I see somebody who says, I'm only going non-exclusive. A lot of people are afraid that non-exclusive libraries are being pushed out, and there's definitely some pushback about non-exclusivity.
Yeah.
And there are people who feel that exclusive libraries who aren't willing to pay something up front are taking advantage of musicians. So how did you land on the decision you made, and how has it affected you?
I would say when I was first doing this, I was just going after everything, and I've signed some exclusive deals, and a couple that I regret because they have it's perpetuity. They have no reversion clause, and I didn't get anything up front. and the songs have been with him for 2 or 3 years, and nothing's happened.
And are they all songs or some of them instrumentals as well?
Yeah, it's a couple instrumentals and a couple songs,
Okay.
and I know that that I should just submit and forget, but there's something that I feel that devalues it when you just give it away so easily.
Okay.
And just I don't know. I've just had more success. I've just gotten paid more from the non-exclusives than I have from the couple of exclusives. Like I haven't gotten anything, not a dime from the
Right.
exclusives that I've signed.
Which is odd, but it may be that you just don't have enough out there yet.
It totally could. Yeah.
Because generally speaking, and this is only an opinion. I don't even know that I can honestly say this is my opinion. It's just something I've heard
Yeah.
anecdotally from members who do both. Their feeling is that the exclusive libraries tend to work a little harder and be a little pickier about what they sign, but something has changed in the last couple of years because of the pushback against non-exclusive companies. Now companies that used to be non-exclusive are also signing stuff exclusively, or
Yeah.
companies have totally flipped to exclusive, and if they're not paying anything up front, you're right, they didn't work any harder to get that than they did the non-exclusive stuff that
Yeah.
they might have signed previously, so why should they work any harder?
Yeah, I would say that, and I just actually had this discussion with, I got a forward through Taxi, and there was a company that emailed me saying that they wanted the song, and they gave me a non-exclusive and exclusive option, but the non-exclusive was in perpetuity, which I felt still limited me, because the thing is like, when I do find a company that is working really well with me, I feel like they get what I'm doing, and I'm giving them what they want, and we're making some good business together. I want to be able to go exclusive with them. It would be nice not to have like a million non-exclusive relationships that I have to maintain, or I don't know. It's a lot of work, delivering all these different file formats. Like there's libraries that want WAV files, and these want just high res MP3s, and I've just got so many folders of identical songs, like in different
Right.
bit formats, and anyway, so it'd just be nice to just have like one or two companies that I could work with and really have a partnership with. So I want to be able to have access, be able to get my songs back and put them in one spot if I wanted to.
I'm
So it's
curious
not-
to see that so many people I know, myself included, back when I used to engineer, what I thought was great yesterday or 6 months ago or a year ago, you look back at it 4 years later and you go, yeah, I've grown so much since that point.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you're going to get to a point where the stuff that you want to hold on to and have that ability, and don't want to wait for it to revert or have it be lost in perpetuity, that someday you may look back at it and go, I'm so much better now, which seeing how serious you are and kind of productive you are, I suspect might be the case. I'm not sure.
It totally might be, and I'm still like, anybody out there, don't take anything that I say as gospel. I'm just like you guys, and I'm still trying to figure out what works for me. Yeah, I don't know. There's something in my gut that just tells me that I want just giving it away for free and letting them have it forever when they didn't do anything
to earn it.
Just in my gut, I just feel like, I don't know. It doesn't feel right.
What about an exclusive deal where they paid you $200 to $500 for it up front?
Yeah. I think I could be open to that. That would mean that they have something in the game.
Right.
Yeah, and I've started to see those.
Yeah, we've been happy to see those.
Yeah.
And we actually, we don't just run listings for any old company that wants to run a listing. So we're always trying to do whatever we can to put you guys in a better position. And I've noticed that you know, Elizabeth and Kevin are definitely bringing in more listings from companies that are paying stuff up front. And funny enough, a couple of those companies, if I'm not mistaken, are companies founded by people who got their start with Taxi.
Nice.
They used Taxi Get in other libraries and then gained enough business wherewithal to start their own.
Yeah.
And I think that they're more sensitive to the needs of you guys because they are you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of cool. What do you want me to go in any particular order on something that we can play next?
Let me see here. I'm trying to think here. The Here We Go song, that's one that I did all on my own, including vocals, which I'm not really a vocalist, but I did this one.
All right,
Yeah.
Let's find out what a vocalist you are.
Yeah, all right. That's funny. I like your vocal a lot. Thanks, man.
It's very appropriate.
Thanks.
Easy edit point. Might want to point that out.
Mhm.
I have to point that out. All right, so Yes, I like your vocal,
Thanks.
and I have a feeling these guys do as well. And somebody says, kind of, water says,
Lumineers.
Lumineers.
Yeah.
I mean, you've clearly paid attention to the listings and what the industry is looking for and doing it, and you're doing it really, really well.
Thanks.
Somebody asked a really good question. Do you ever get writer's block? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Co-writing is
Okay.
yeah. Co-writing is how I deal with writer's block. There's especially writing with a new writer. There's something um, this is something else that I learned over these last couple of years is picking the co-writers that I work with. I always try and make sure that they fill a void that I'm not able to do well,
Okay.
and that I always make sure that I'm able to fill a void that they don't do well. Like it's really important that you're giving something that they can't already do, because otherwise,
It's like a marriage.
yeah, exactly,
The-
exactly. I find that those co-writes always work the best if even if it's um, even if it's the they just have no idea how to record or mix. Maybe I'll take the role more as the producer if they're really great with lyrics and melody. Um, Maybe I'll just really just kind of work on, like, we could cut that verse in half, and oh, this would be a great bridge. Just more.
Stuff that they might not have noticed because they're too close to it. You can be that objective guy for them.
Yeah, just sometimes in that role. I mean, I know that you've talked about that before, where like just the guy getting the coffee,
Right.
like the song would not have ended up that way. Sometimes you have to take that role. Other times you have to, you're just on fire, and the other person is playing that supportive.
Boy, you really do watch the show. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Somebody else asked a question. How many genres are you submitting in?
I would say, let me think here. Um, I can tell you what ones I tend to skip over, because I do tend to read through them all, but I tend to skip over the rap, just because I that's just not going to be sincere from, I
Right.
it's just going to sound phony. Um,
Although now that we've had the Oprah Hop discussion,
that's true. Yeah, I may give it a shot.
And we were talking about Oprah Hop before the show started.
Um, I tend to skip over the Christian section, just because that's got a whole sound to it too that I um, haven't really explored. Let me see here. The country stuff, I do have, like I said before, I've written a bunch of country, but the bar is so high. I listen to a lot of country. I think the new Casey Musgraves album
Yeah.
is so good. Their songwriting, and there's not really like a lot going on, but it just comes down to just great songwriting.
Anybody who thinks that the Nashville writers and producers are getting by on pickup trucks and beer,
No. When her album came out, that definitely proved otherwise.
yeah, there's so much craft in that town.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of members get frustrated where they get forwarded. You brought this up before. They get forwarded for a country film and TV pitch, and then the same song doesn't get forwarded for a country listing for an artist or a label pitch.
Yeah, that's
But
totally
they're-
different.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges. They're both country. They're both female or male or whatever. But TV is much more forgiving in the world of country because more often than not they're looking for source music to play in a jukebox.
Mhm.
And oh, we had a song in the movie Loopers.
Mhm.
And that was a direct to supervisor pitch.
Nice.
And I just went back and watched that scene about 3 weeks ago, and the song is so far down in the mix. It was actually heartbreaking for me because, of course, I want the
Yeah.
taxi member. It's like, play it louder. But it was textural.
Yeah.
It was Bruce Willis and the other kid whose name I can never remember in a diner scene.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they just needed wallpaper.
Yeah.
But I think it was Ellen Vanderslice was the member, and she got a nice check for that. And the movie gets played on HBO and Showtime and what have you a lot, so she'll make a lot of money on that.
There you go.
Yeah, and it
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope, and it was wallpaper.
Yeah.
Let's listen to something instrumental.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I didn't actually put. One that I'm really proud of is number 22.
Okay.
This one was. This one I think was for again a taxi listing, and they wanted something in the Ocean's 11 style, that kind of like
Right.
whatever that is.
Kind of
70s,
loungy, Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas. It totally sounds like that.
Right.
Yeah, and this one was written with my production partner Evan Hillhouse. Yeah, and it just turned out so well. I'm really proud of the mix, and it's a lot of fun.
Let's have a listen.
Right.
And this is called Smash and Grab.
Smash and grab.
And kitschy as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was the instrument? I saw somebody talking about it. The first instrument we hear, I'm going to play. Obviously not the very first instrument.
Yeah.
There's a synth sound. It's probably going to be 2 minutes into the song. That.
I think
that's
that's
just
like,
a B3.
Yeah, I think it's just an organ.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very. It's kitschy. It is definitely Ocean's 11,
Yeah.
but the Mike Myers movie.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, very Austin Powers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that was a lot of fun. That was a really fun one.
You can see George Clooney. Nice ending. Got some +1s there.
Does Evan Hillhouse have an afro? No.
Gosh, I have questions I haven't even gotten to there. Oh, stuff that when we were doing our back. Okay, we talked about exclusive versus non. Talked about co-writing already. That's good. We're covering a lot of this stuff. How to process critiques.
It was
And
live
denials.
drums. I was just answering
okay.
Andy's question. Yeah, live drums.
All right. Okay, so you have, for instance, you're talking about in our email exchange how to process song critiques and denials. For instance, one critique suggested I upgrade my sound library because my track sounded too programmed/fake. The tricky thing was that everything in the track was recorded live with real instruments, not a single MIDI instrument. Was this the track?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I had to wrap my head around how to interpret this feedback and not completely disregard it. There's value in what they said, even if they were wrong about what it was that caused it to sound that way. Um, so the
That was
value. Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
I was gonna say that was one that took me a little while because when something gets rejected, you tend to take it personally,
Sure.
and then when the critique is
Wrong.
off like that, when it's wrong like that, you tend to like really like your first instinct is like they don't know what they're stupid guys, they don't know what they're talking about, whatever. But after I took a couple breaths, I was like, all right, they still rejected it. That's it still got returned, and they're making this comment about how it sounds just too fake, too sterile. So even though it sounds MIDI and it was with real instruments, why did it? Why?
Yeah, I've got to say that's the first time I've ever heard that one in 22 years, where a screener said something sounded MIDI when it was all human.
Yeah. So I mean, I took that to mean that maybe if I hadn't close mic'd everything and not maybe put a little bit more room into it.
What kind of track was it? Do you remember the genre or style?
Yeah, it was like they wanted something like French Parisian French coffee shop. So there was accordion. Yeah, they wanted something.
I remember that one. It was for a feature film, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it may have been. So that's maybe that's what I took it to mean, and I think I actually just listened back to it not too long ago, and I could hear what they're talking about. So maybe if I had just, I think that was if I had actually recorded a live band like in a single room playing that song, it may have gotten forwarded because it had that element to it. But because I individually recorded each and every instrument and put it into a mix, it just sounded too studio. Even though it was live, I just needed to maybe just go record some air, just like put some air in.
I gotta tell you, back in around 19, it was actually the night that John Lennon was killed. I remember the session. I was doing orchestral TV promos, I think for ABC or something, and I was doing it in a studio in Fort Lauderdale. And the guy I was working with, the composer-producer guy, wanted to do everything as an overdub, and he didn't start out with the rhythm section. Yeah, and he cut everything to click, and we were doing strings like, just the violins, then bringing in the violas. And this guy was definitely more talented than that and knew his way around a studio very well. But I was afraid of that very thing.
Yeah.
So what I did was I set up the other mics that I would have used in the room for the other strings as if the other people were there. I think I even went as far as putting the chairs there.
Yeah.
And opened those mics up, and it solved the problem.
Yeah, see, that's what I should have done. I should have had a couple of room mics just going the whole time.
Yeah,
like when recording all these parts,
and have different room mics, so it doesn't sound like everything. That was the thing that I realized was it worked because I didn't have the same 2 or 4 mics open all the time. It was, if I was recording the violins, I had the viola and cello mics open. If I was doing the horns, I would have, generally when I did horns, I would have everybody stand in a semicircle or a circle around an omni mic.
Yeah.
I loved having the horn players all blow at each other and see each other. It just adds something to it. But by the same token, I would very often have a stereo pair, maybe on a couple of high booms looking down like this at them. Yeah. So I did all that stuff, and when I put it all together, it sounded like I did everybody in a big room.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was,
and see, that's what I learned from it. So
there's value in even a bad critique.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just sometimes like you have to get down to the core why. Like what is it?
Yeah, because they weren't doing it out of malice. They were just telling you what they thought they heard. And so, all right, good for you for taking it, taking one to the chin and being manly enough to step up and go, okay, what could I have done better? So,
yeah, it's not easy. And I still struggle with it sometimes, but yeah, it makes you better if you just start with maybe sometimes start with the viewpoint that you're wrong.
That's tough. Yeah,
it's tough. Instead of like going and being like, this is the best thing I've ever written, maybe just start from the aspect of like, okay,
Wow.
this is wrong, and why is it wrong?
You are a much more evolved human being than I'll ever be.
Yeah, I don't know. If you don't, then you don't get any better. You know, if you have all these returned songs over here in a stack, and you don't take the time to really like emotionally go through why it's not working, especially after several returns.
Right.
You know, if you're not taking the time to figure out why it's not working, then you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, there's math involved there. They can't all be wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody may be right.
Yeah.
Another frustrating, Josh went on to say, another frustrating example was with a song called Here We Go, which I submitted independently to a music library who rejected it. I got a form email response saying it didn't meet their criteria for acceptance. It wasn't what they were looking for. However, 2 months later, it was forwarded to that same library, and that library contacted me wanting to sign it. The song is now in their catalog. So you're saying you sent it to them on your own, but then it got forwarded via a taxi?
Via taxi, yeah.
Okay.
And a couple months later. Yeah.
And they took it on the second go-round. Maybe it was the familiarity principle at work.
Yeah, I've thought about that, yeah. But I just wanted to illustrate that just because, again, for what we do, there's a lot of rejection, you know?
Yeah.
And if, I don't know, it's just important, like, if maybe somebody else might have experienced this and that would have been their last rejection. They just would have like just thrown it in the trash and been like, oh, that song's just not any good. But that's
or thrown the library or taxi, anybody else in the trash.
Yeah, just that could have been a last straw for somebody, and it's just important to know that there's so many reasons why that could have happened. Maybe whoever listened to it, I don't know, just doesn't like that style, or just wasn't hitting them right that day, or maybe it's the familiarity thing where the second time they listened to it, it was like, oh yeah, this sounds kind of familiar. This sounds like something I might have heard before. And that's just what it took. So it doesn't mean that it was a bad song.
It could have been their frame of reference. Look, you know, when libraries run listings with taxi or supervisors or labels, they are in a frame of mind and needing something specific. It's pretty rare that they just generally say, find us something good. And when they do say that, we don't want to run we're looking for something good listing. So we'll say, you know, okay, so you want hip hop? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we narrow it down.
Yeah.
When they're in a frame of mind looking for, they may have 100 orchestral pieces in a certain style of orchestral already, and they would never need it. So that's why they could have rejected something that day. It's
yeah,
like,
they just weren't looking for it.
Yeah, but then 2 weeks later, they got a call from somebody, and they didn't have the exact right thing, and they ran a listing, and your thing was right for that. So who knows? But
yeah. It can be frustrating because you think like if you write the right song, you record it well, you produce it well, and everything's right, that you're doing your job, but it just needs to be pitched at the right time to the right person. It's just there's so many variables, and that was a learning experience too, of just knowing that even when you do everything right, sometimes the timing's not right.
One of the things that you mentioned, which I actually circled on the sheet, was Ari Levine, who's one of the Smeezingtons, which if you don't know, the Smeezingtons are Ari Levine, I can't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah, it's Bruno Mars, Ari Levine,
and one other guy whose name I can never... Sorry, third person, if you're watching the show today, I feel badly. But they did the Bruno Mars stuff in Ari Levine's studio, which is called Levcon, right?
I think so, yeah.
And it's here in L.A., and he's got like one microphone, an 87, I think, and a few plugins, and very little to practically no, maybe 3-4 pieces of outboard. I mean,
it's very minimal.
And yet Bruno Mars records sound spectacularly good. I think I read that he uses a Yamaha O2R, which
the board,
I mean, it's old technology, but people still love them. And he uses it because he likes the preamps. It does prove that it's not the studio, it's the person with their finger on the fader.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was really cool that you brought that up.
Yeah, that was really inspiring for me, because my studio is about the size of this office, which is about 12 by 16. That's the size of my studio, is 12 by 16.
Okay, that's a nice size room.
Yeah, it's pretty good. and I produce artists in there, which in hindsight I would have built something bigger to produce artists, but it's just a single room, a single building. But anyway, after seeing the article is on Sound magazine is where I first saw it.
Right.
I was like, man, they're almost in a room the same size as
Yeah.
and I've got more microphones than what they do.
And he's using the acoustic guitar on the Bruno Mars record. What was the name of the first album? The one that hit. I can never remember the name of the album.
It wasn't Hooligan. No, there was one that was called something in Hooligans. Doo-wop and Hooligans.
In any case, I think I think I read the same article. $150 Fender acoustic guitar.
Absolutely. And I was sorry to.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say for what is it? I'm totally. Who was Tim Myers?
Tim Myers
was in that band.
Yeah, that band.
One Republic.
Thank you. Yes.
One Republic.
And left right when the record started to break.
Their song "Counting Stars," which is a huge smash right now. If you just listen to the acoustic guitar on that.
Mm-hmm.
It is so buzzy. There's so much fret noise. Like it sounds like they're not hitting the fret. And sometimes I get so particular about like when I'm recording acoustic guitar to like edit out things that are I mean I don't get too surgical about it, but sometimes you just hit a string wrong and it's got extra buzz. They left everything in there,
and it works.
And it totally works. And so it's just revelations like that where I'm like, man, if you just get just the right vibe. It just and the right song. I don't know. There's just
and I've got to tell you that's Ryan Tedder, who's known. Everybody likes and respects Ryan Tedder's work. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the engineer on that stuff is a friend of mine, Joe Zook. I don't know if Joe did that particular song, but I think he does everything that Ryan Tedder does.
Yeah.
And that just reminded me. I feel badly now. Ralph Murphy was just out here a couple of weeks ago, and we play golf like once a year for 2 days, and we used to always invite Joe Zook, and I said, who's Ryan's engineer, and I said to Ralph, we should call Jay-Z, and he goes, yeah, and I totally spaced. So Jay-Z, if you're watching the show, I feel bad, dude. And I played the best golf of my life, and you weren't there to see it. But yeah, Zook is a world-class engineer whose work I have not just respect for, but tremendous admiration. So if he left that in there...
Oh, yeah, I wasn't critiquing it.
I know. I'm saying he left it in for a reason because it worked.
Oh, it totally works. Yeah, it inspired me. I wanted to... Yeah,
I want that buzz.
I want to just... I don't know. Sometimes it's easy to get distracted with all the other stuff when really like it just sounds like they just recorded an acoustic guitar in a room and just let it go. And
they went for the performance.
They went for the performance, and I'm like, I need to remember that. I need to not just think, oh, I can record any old acoustic guitar and I can fix everything later.
I gotta believe it's hard for all you guys and ladies because so many of you work alone, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're sitting there. I get that way when I'm writing stuff here for the newsletter or whatever. I'll read it 3 or 4 times, and every time I'm constantly taking other stuff out. So I get it, but maybe I should just write the first draft from the heart and let it go with the typos and everything. And you never, Josh says in his email, I never submit to a listing where the client doesn't give a specific example of what they're looking for. Yeah. This tells me the client doesn't know what they want and wants us to figure it out for them. I got to tell you, even the ones where they give specific examples, they are wrong so often, and we have to pry it out of their cold, dead hands.
And I respect that work.
It's
so much.
Tough. It really is. And I know you've had success outside of taxi where you've gotten placements on your own. So, and my next question for Josh is going to be about living here versus not. But before we go there, you've got to recognize that when you meet people on your own in social settings or whatever, that they really don't know, because sometimes you take your best shot or your best guess as to what's going to work in a scene, but then when you see it against picture, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it is, if I could wave my little magic wand and throw fairy dust on the industry, that would definitely be high on the list of things to fix.
Yeah. There's been so many. There was one I got contacted by an ad agency, and they wanted me to write something specific for a commercial, and they wanted a combination of what is it? That song, it's your thing.
Right.
It's your thing.
Right.
Do what you want to do. They wanted a combination of that and Jay-Z's 99 Problems, which is, rap,
Yeah.
hip hop, and we eventually came to something, but it wasn't. It didn't really sound like either one, and I think that they just communicate like the emotions that they feel. They don't really want Jay-Z's 99 Problems. They just like how it makes them feel.
Yeah.
They just like that kind of, it's got some like badass factor to it. And the same thing with the It's Your Thing. It's like, this is fun and makes me feel. So they want like fun and badass. And, like I feel like
Fun ass. Well,
Yeah.
and I understand how they got there, having mixed a gazillion commercials back in another part of my career, is, you've got the client, the ad agency's client. Let's say it's Nike, for picking a product out of thin air. It could be the music person or the creative director or the person who actually conceived and wrote the spot, which might not be the creative director. It might be the copywriter. Always heard, it's your thing in their head.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought it into a meeting in the conference room, and then it got temped in against the animatics, and it kind of stuck for a while. But then they realized it's too cliche because that song's been used a million times. So can you give us something like that? And somebody else goes, yeah, what about this Jay-Z song? And they play that, and they go, that's really cool. What if we combine the two of them?
Exactly,
and
yeah.
then they call you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I understand how it happens, but it's art.
Yeah.
It's not math, and I'm sure they didn't, let's screw with this guy's head and give him an impossible task. That's how they got there, some version of that, and you get stuck with it. And then you give it to him. Did your thing end up getting used in the commercial?
Oh yeah, I was kind of contracted for the job.
Well,
yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, but it was not an easy job. It took about 5 weeks of going back and forth, refining, changing things.
I don't know if you remember. I think you remember back then, but we had Centrum vitamins, and at the time we had to say it was for a product called Anthem and not Anthem in the insurance company. And they wanted, so we'd take a lyric, because the members had to write to a lyric, if I remember correctly, but we had to take the word Centrum out and put Anthem in so that the rhyme scheme and the syllabic aspect of it worked. And one of our members beat out all the big New York City ad music companies and landed the gig. And this poor guy came home, left his wife and kids, I think, on vacation, and came home to do rewrites. And they put the guy through the ringer. In the end, the spot tested really poorly, like maybe the worst test that a commercial's ever gone through. It got like a 0.
Yeah.
And it ended up not ever making it to air. And it was so heartbreaking because this guy worked so hard. It was so deserving. And I hope they gave him at least some sort of payment for all the hoops that he jumped through.
Yeah.
But you never know. The agency could show it to the client, and the client goes, nope, we hate it, or the client loves it and the agency tests it and it tests poorly. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So where are we? We're 5:09. So do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask Josh?
There was a couple in there. I think somebody asked what sound libraries I use. I really like the Native Instruments. I've got the Native Instruments 9 Ultimate or whatever it is. That's got just so much stuff. If I had to do it all over again, I would, that would be the one that I would buy just because it's got so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
So that one works really well for me. Someone else was asking about the singers that I work with, and I would have to say, because I moved out here as a for-hire musician, as a drummer, playing for different artists, I've really lucked into meeting certain people. There's 2 songs that I've got that are have singers from The Voice that made it pretty far in The Voice. So I'm really lucky to, and I actually knew both of them before they got on the show.
He dyed Adam Levine's hair blonde.
Exactly.
He's had that much good fortune since he got it.
Yeah, so I've just been really lucky to be able to find really high caliber singers to sing on. And someone was asking if I include them in on the songwriting, and no, I just pay them a session work for hire fee. There's, you know, I've reached out to them. A lot of times I'll reach out to them and ask them if they want to co-write on the song, because I feel like that's always better. You know, it doesn't come out of my pocket, and it gives them more than, you know, it gives them a piece of the action.
Yeah, sing your ass off. You're a co-writer now.
Yeah, exactly. But especially for the things that I've got the song already written, it's just kind of in my best interest to just pay a session fee and just have somebody sing it. But I always have them sign the work for hire agreement. So it's,
yeah, the last thing you want is somebody forgetting that they sang that vocal, and 2 years later they're in a movie theater and they go, I sang that and I didn't sign a work for hire. Hello, Josh.
Yeah, I had a publisher friend of mine who was the reason why I'm particular about making sure that they get signed, who said that they knew a songwriter who hired a singer to sing on his song, and then that singer a year or two later got signed to a major label. And the label now owns basically her voice, you know, the singer's voice, and doesn't want her voice being used on all these other things.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a work for hire, so now he couldn't use that recording anymore.
What a bummer.
Yeah. So just kind of things like that.
So you're one of the few people, I've been prone to say many, many times over the years, look, with the internet and people collaborating down a wire these days in the industry kind of growing globally as a community, that you don't really need to move to a music center like LA, New York, or Nashville. I've always said if you get stuff going on and it's starting to make financial sense for you to move to the music center, do it. You took a big chance and moved out here really before you had anything going on, and you've benefited from being here. So can you tell them, you know, we were talking before the show, it's like, wow, do you go to really cool parties and stuff? How have you networked and met people because you live in a big music center?
I'm like you. I remember, I forget who you were talking with, but you were saying that you're not a really outgoing social person. I'm that way.
If you and I were at a party together, we'd totally be hanging out in the corner
yeah,
together
exactly.
talking about microphones or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally me. But I learned, I practiced doing my best to be outgoing, meeting people without seeming fake or insincere, which was I always just felt like I was going and meeting with somebody and I had an agenda and it just seemed insincere.
So has your wife busted you in the bathroom, like going, "Hi, my name's Josh"? I mean, how do you practice that?
Well, luckily my wife is, she's just super personable. Everybody really loves her. So, and I'm not lying, I've gotten more gigs and contacts than I can count because she's come to a gig and been backstage in the green room and made friends with whoever. She's like, "Hey Josh, come over here, look who I met."
Right.
And it ends up being somebody. So yeah, I've kind of learned a lot from her. The first, when I wanted to get into the film and TV thing, I was like, all right, I got to meet, you know, a music supervisor. I had so many questions anyway. I was like, man, if I could just meet one and just figure out, just, you know, I had all these questions, and I tried for so long. I was reaching out to my musicians friends, but they just seemed to go in different circles. The music supervisors.
Yeah, surprising they don't hang out with like guitar players.
Yeah. Anyway, so what ended up happening is we adopted a dog, and the lady that like kind of ran the dog rescue, she worked in TV, and she worked at a production company, and I just, you know, I didn't want to be that guy, but I was like, you know, look, do you know anybody?
I'll take your dog if you can get my song.
Yes, this was after, and we already had like a good rapport. I was like, I know you work in TV. Do you know any music supervisors? I just want to take them to coffee and just ask them questions. And it was through her that I met the first one. It was not very rock and roll at all.
But you know what? It's because you're a nice guy and she could sense that. Because nobody's going to turn a jerk onto somebody, even if you adopted the damn dog.
That's true. Yes, I think she knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just been through friends, and I still don't have that many personal relationships with music supervisors. So to answer your question, I still think there's benefits of living out here. I have access to some really good session singers, a lot of great musicians, a lot of who cannot record it on their own. They don't have their
Right.
own recording ability. So if I still lived back in Indiana, I wouldn't be able to have these unless I wanted to pay for them to go to a studio and record, which would be kind of a whole thing, But luckily, I'm here, so I can actually produce them and encourage them to try different, things vocally. I'm in the same room with them.
The studio's not at your house; it's in a separate building, or is
I built it in
at
my backyard.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And one of the other benefits of living here is real estate's really cheap, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, we eventually bought a house out here. And,
Indiana prices, Southern California prices.
Yeah.
You could buy a small town in Indiana for what it would cost to buy a house here. It's
Absolutely.
just absurdly expensive. Do you copyright? Somebody asked way earlier in the show, do you copyright your songs before you submit them?
I used to, and I just don't anymore. I just write so much that I think if I did, I would have to maybe do it quarterly and just do the thing where I just take all the songs I've written and just do a compilation.
Yeah,
It's-
you almost, when you're as productive as you sound like you are, you almost need like an assistant to take care of that stuff.
That's I'm just about there.
Meta tagging,
Yeah.
doing copywriting, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting to be it's just the logistics of how to do this. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it's tough. But one of the things that I really admired about you as I saw the email and started researching this Josh Doyle, not the other one, is you are somebody who understands the business. And we talked about this before the show too. The balancing act of business and art, and you seem to get it. You seem happy doing what you're doing.
I'm happy, and I'm always learning, and I try to just be as professional as I can and just make whoever I'm working with make their job easier. Like if them working with me makes their job easier, then they're going to want to work with me more. So I try and learn as much as I can about the person that I'm working with, what their workflow is like, and just craft my submission to them. But it goes back to the logistics thing where, they like their files in this format. They like, whatever it is, 2848, 24K 48-bit WAV files, and these people like 1641 or 44.1 files, and
Like they could hear the difference.
Yeah.
It's all about their ability. They just want whatever they're used to because it's just easier.
exactly, which means I have to, convert it, and means I have to do the metadata all over again or whatever. So but in the end, it makes it easier for them, which, it comes back around.
Yeah.
But it is a lot of non-creative work sometimes.
Well, I have a feeling that you have a bright future ahead of you.
I hope so.
You're a good guy,
Thanks.
and you're doing all the right stuff. And
Thanks.
your music is first rate, and you get it. So a good example for your fellow members to.
I hope so.
Yeah,
hope
and
so.
I really enjoyed having you on the show,
Thanks.
and hope our paths cross.
Absolutely.
More than here and at the road rally.
Oh yeah. I'm not missing. I had to miss the last one. I was on a tour last year, but this year I'm there. I don't care.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know who the featured or who the honoree is yet, but I'm literally starting that work this week. So
All right. I'm
hopefully
looking
we'll
forward to
know
it.
soon. And with that, we bid you adieu. Josh, thank you again for being on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh Doyle. And we will see you next week on another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye, you guys.